So we are looking at session 8 of Marriage and Family Counseling, blended families. So often when we think of blended families, the Brady Bunch of old comes to mind, or in our day and age, modern family. So while some blended families may look like the ones of television fame, the dynamics portrayed on television are surface at best. We have to keep in mind that step families and single parent families represent the most significant cultural change in our culture and the church today. The blended family system has impacted all of us to one degree or another. Each of us either has experienced or is connected with someone who has experienced the disintegration of their family of origin and then become part of a different family other than their family of origin. So our working definition of blended family is any family that involves two committed co-parents in which at least one of the partners has been or is a parent to one or more biological children with a prior partner. Okay. A blended family is any family that involves two committed co-parents in which at least one of the partners has been or is a parent to one or more biological children with a prior partner. So anytime a child into a home in which one or both marriage partners are not the biological parents, a blended family is created. The events that precede a blended family being created may include divorce, spousal family abandonment, death of a spouse, death of both parents, or adoption. These families continually face issues from the paradigms of the past as they attempt to build a new family culture. So add to that the likelihood that statistically, two households will likely be involved in the parenting of at least some of the children. So there are dynamics of each affecting the other and vice versa. So you can have a child that's part of two different households. Let's say they're living with mom. Okay, well then they also have dad's family, new family that they're going to be a part of, two completely different households. So statistically, about 75% of those who divorce will remarry, and most within 2 years. Now, psychologists say it takes 4 to 8 years for a remarried family to gel and feel like a family. They have no history together. They have nothing to build off of. Everything's new. Now, the divorce rate for remarriages with children is almost 65%, with most divorces occurring within the first 4 years before the family has had a time to blend. So when you take a look at those statistics, so you've got 5% of divorced people will remarry, and 65% of those will again divorce before the end of the first 4 years. So when you take a look at there's the divorce rate and the marriage rate are the same. Not when you take a look at these kinds of numbers, these kinds of factors. Over 50% of most people who attend Christian church congregations are in or related to a blended family: couples, children, youth, grandparents, extended family, etc. So the prevalence of step families, 43% of married couples with children, families in the US are step couples. At least one partner had a child from a previous relationship before marriage. This includes full and part-time residential step families and those with children under and or over the age of 18. The percentage of all married couple households is 35%. Approximately 1/3 of all weddings in America today form step families. In 2001, 38% of all US marriages were remarriages for one or both partners. 15% for both, 23% for one. And I see that even a lot more. I see a lot of people where a person is getting married for the first time and they're marrying somebody who's been married once or even twice before. One situation I know where She had never been married, 38 years old, and she married a man who she was going to be his fourth wife. I guess he hadn't found one that stuck yet, didn't find one to take. So here's a few other notable statistics that are helpful. So there are 14 million stepmothers in the US today, married or cohabitating. And this doesn't include adult step families. There are 35 million Americans in the US today who are remarried. There are an additional 36 million Americans who are divorced or widowed, possibly finding themselves in a remarriage at some point. And that's the US Census of 2007. We'll see what the 2020 census brings us. 1/3 of individuals who got divorced in 2008 were re-divorcing. That is, divorcing again. Only about 1/3 of step-family marriages last. Serial transitions in and out of marriage, divorce, cohabitation is now typical of family life in the US and has significant negative consequences for children. Because remember, God's design is for children to be safe, caring, loving, nurturing relationship with their biological families who will be lovingly married to each other for their entire lives. Okay? And in safe, loving, caring, nurturing relationship with their nuclear family, which is their parents and their siblings. When that gets fractured, when that gets when that disintegrates for any reason, the impact on the souls and hearts and lives of those children is enormous. Americans marry, divorce, and cohabit more than any other Western society. They also have a more casual, transient approach to relationships. Children living with two married parents in the US have a higher risk of experiencing family breakup than do children living with two unmarried parents in Sweden. 10% of women in the US have had 3 or more marriages, divorces, or cohabitating partners by age 35. The next highest industrialized nation is Sweden at 4.5%. 16% of persons born after 1970 will marry, divorce, remarry, and redivorce. By age 15, 29% of your children experience 2 or more mother partnerships, either marriage or cohabitation. The more parental partnerships, transitions in and out of couple relationships, the children experience, the lower their overall emotional, psychological, and academic well-being. And there's all kinds of studies that talk about that. So let's take a look at about the Bible and blended families. So all throughout the Old Testament, we see numerous examples of polygamous marriages in which children were born. And voila, you've got an instant blended family, complete with half siblings and step-parents. What's interesting is you don't see half sister, half brother, stepmother, you don't see half and step designations in Scripture. And we've talked a little bit about that, but when a man and woman marry, they become one flesh. So their children become the other parent's children. So it's like, for better or worse, when I married my wife, my father became her father by marriage. They say father-in-law, but if we're really one flesh, there's more of a weaving together than just what the paper says. So you take a look at the dynamic blended family, and that resulted in hatred of one group of half-brothers toward a half-brother from the other group, Joseph and his brothers, and Joseph's dehumanizing treatment by his siblings and his being sold as a slave. Remember, they were going to kill him. They hated him so much. He was an enemy to be killed, to be destroyed. But then they came up with a brilliant idea. Hey, wait a minute. We could make some money off of him, so let's sell him. So he went from being a human enemy to be destroyed to being a thing to be sold. That's pretty dehumanizing. And then we fast forward to King David's household, and we arrive at one of the foulest stories of malevolent treatment by one half sibling of another, and the murderous results. We have Amnon, his half-sister Tamar, and Tamar's brother Absalom. Look, you can see that whole nasty story in 2 Samuel 13, and in Counseling Survivors of Abuse, we'll dig into it pretty deeply. And of course, the most famous blended family in the Bible is the family of Jesus. He lived with his biological mother, his stepfather, and his half-brothers and half-sisters. Now, not much is said directly about their family and community dynamics, but there are a couple of instances where some of the dynamics are revealed indirectly. And they got several citations there. But from these examples in Scripture, we can clearly see that while God can and does use blended families to provide and care for those he loves, the family system is not God's best. But when God's best is not attainable, he will have a good, viable alternative. What happens often, though, is people don't prayerfully enter into that. They don't really seek, is this really God's best? They say, oh, well, this makes sense, and yeah, I can do this, or yeah, I don't see why not. But it's not really seeking God. And it's not seeking godly counsel about it. I mean, they've been believers for a long time. They both know the Lord really well. They've both got some life experience. But sitting down and talking, even with the children, about putting the two families together, a lot of times they don't do that. A lot of times they won't even. The surprise! You got a new mom. You got a new dad. Instead of saying, this is where we are, this is what we believe God would have us do. Not even having that conversation. Let's talk about some of the key issues. When families are blended, several matters happen simultaneously that no matter how well or how poorly they are done, they will have far-reaching effects, not only on each person directly involved, but also on the other relationships each member of the family is immersed in outside of the blend, and on into future generations. The key issues that arise include marriage and remarriage, parenting and co-parenting, shared parenting, that means co-parenting with a second household, siblings, step-siblings, and half-siblings, visitation, holidays, birthdays, and then living arrangements. So some of the ways these manifest are the parent and step-parent typically do not treat children in the blended family equally. Okay, and this can be one of the greatest causes of division and hate and discontent and bitterness of all. Matter of fact, a lot of times, your kids, my kids, that kind of language, your son, my daughter, my son, your daughter, that kind of language is divisive language. And so there are divided loyalties in that. Many step-parents find it difficult to love their stepchildren. Well, part of that is because they didn't get a chance to develop a relationship with that stepchild before they blended the family to see, because it's like, oh, are the grown-ups compatible? Are the adults and the children compatible? Does it make sense? Especially small children. Remarried spouses often make their biological children a greater priority than their new spouse, which strains the new marriage relationship because the disintegration of the first marriage hasn't been grieved and healed from enough yet. So they're still in the process of trying to make up for the disintegration of the family for their children. Children of divorce often resist connecting to the new family, especially when you have step siblings, school-age step siblings thrown into things. Discipline from a step parent often results in opposition, frustration, and disrespect. Children of divorce usually have two homes with different rules and methods of discipline. Extended families do not always accept the new spouse or the stepchildren, causing added hurt. Remarried spouses often have difficulty working with the other biological parent. And remarried spouses often find it difficult understanding or adapting to the new role as a step parent. Situation, I've been counseling for about 1.5 years now. He had small children. She had high school age children. As a matter of fact, one of the children was already out of the home. And they did a long distance dating relationship. And he relocated with his small children. They both were widowed. He relocated with his small children, and all of a sudden he's expecting her to parent these small children that she has no idea who they really are, no real relationship with, but he's expecting her to step in and parent as if the way that their mother had. Well, these children haven't even processed through the grieving of the loss of their mother yet. They were never even given a chance to do that. And dad is still grieving and still hasn't finished. So you can see the mess that would create, right? So basic principles for co-parenting with the other household. Principle 1, accept your children as members of 2 households and remember their need to belong to households, not just yours. So validating the fact that your child has 2 families that they're a part of, and you don't do anything to force them into a situation where they have to show a preference of one over the other. Okay. Some of the most heartbreaking stories I've heard are from the children who've been thrust into these situations. Be supportive of the parenting in the other household. If your child returns to your home complaining about being grounded, don't degrade the other parent's discipline style in front of your child. If you have a problem with the way discipline is being handled in the other household, talk with the other household, not your children. That's triangulating. That's not okay. They may not change their parenting style, but you've at least addressed an area where there is a clear difference in parenting. Now, we'll talk about some of the negative parenting things that have to be addressed. But principle 3, keep the other household informed concerning the children's activities, events, accomplishments, and misbehaviors. Although you cannot expect the other household to enforce your consequences for misbehaviors that happen in your household, keeping them informed allows them that option. Just want to let you know, Sylvia got grounded from her phone because she was texting an older boy. Things were not appropriate. Okay. So what's that other parent going to do with that? So that's that other parent going to commiserate with a child and be the hero in the child's story? Or are they going to support the discipline of that child because it's in the child's best interest? You have no control over that. And principle 4, help your child identify with the positive qualities in the other household. If the other household emphasizes athletics while yours emphasizes academics, encourage your children in both areas. Don't make it an either-or situation. And I tell people, this goes for grandparents too. Because when 2 people get married, even for the first time, okay, you're blending 2 families. You're blending family A and family B, and they're being blended together through family C. Family C is going to have their own children, all right? So like one set of parents' relationship with their son, the husband, and the other set of parents' relationship with the wife, their daughter, okay? So they have 2 different family cultures, but you have a third family culture that's being formed, okay? One set of grandparents is going to have a particular approach to relationship that the other set of grandparents won't have. So it's important for grandparents to remember that if you end up in a situation where you now have 4 sets of grandparents because you have these 2 people divorced and remarried, Now you got 4 sets of grandparents. There's a whole lot of dynamics going on here that have to be talked about well. Okay, so let's talk about living arrangements. Where they live and their specific living arrangements can have a significant impact on the step family. Ideally, they would move into a home that is new to all. It puts everyone at the same starting point and prevents family members from feeling invaded or like an outsider moving in. I can't tell you how often I've seen that. Well, we have the bigger home, so they moved in with us. Listen to that language. We have the bigger home, so they moved in with us. Even that language shows a separation and a lack of unity, and almost a superior, inferior. Like we were settled and they invaded. We're not using that specific language, but it carries that flavor. In most cases, moving into a new home is not feasible or practical. It may require children to leave established friendships, change schools. It may be too expensive. It may not be wise for other reasons. Spouses prayerfully discuss this to make the best decision you can for all involved. Now, a lot of times the discussions don't happen, or they don't happen long enough. And prayer isn't a part of it often. So you as a biblical counselor are going to be sitting across from people who've both been married and divorced, their families together, and they've been married 8, 9, 10 years. And they never resolved a lot of those things. And there's underlying resentment and bitterness that's been going on and building and negatively impacting all of the relationships in the household. So you're going to be tasked with going back and saying, okay, well, let's talk about what was missing, what got left out of the pre-marriage counseling in regard to blending the two families. So we can figure out where the breakdowns have occurred, the effect that those have had, and what God would have us do about them. And it's a long, hard road. You're looking at a 1.5 year, 2-year investment. Okay. Some suggested steps to make things run smoother when moving into an already established home. Be sensitive to the incoming family members and feelings. They are likely to feel like outsiders or even unwanted guests at times. Be sensitive to the existing household members. They're likely to feel invaded, especially if changes happen too quickly or they must now share their room. Be willing to compromise regarding furniture and other household items. Use items from both homes and ask the children for input on which possessions are most important to them. Have a family garage sale to sell off excess items. Get the children involved selling sodas or lemonade, and let them keep the money. Or sell what things would you like to of yours would you like to sell? Tackle a redecorating project together to make the home yours as a family. And this is one of those things that can be a point of contention, because a family that's been in the home, established home, they have a certain style of decor that they've gotten comfortable with. The other family, okay, you got the family that's in there that loves earth tones, and the other family likes bright colors. You're going to have to find a way to put that together. Okay. You can't be an either or, because you're going to isolate and cause a sense of not just separation, but a sense of being less than. Go slow. Too many changes in the home too quickly can be overwhelming to the children and the adult already living there. And step into the incoming member's shoes. What would make them feel more like it's their home too? And even say, okay, if this was reversed and we were moving into their home, what would help me feel welcome and like this is my home too? Not just this is a temporary stopping place. So there are 20 proactive suggestions for bridge building in blended families. And this is from really excellent resource that goes way back. Preparing Couples for Marriage, a guide for pastors for premarital counseling. Very helpful. So the first one is be positive about the parent from the former marriage. Children are part of and an extension of their family and parents. And as such, they will rise to the defense of their parents, even in the cases in which there has been abuse, neglect, or other mistreatment. In such cases, children may accept the fact that there has been abuse, but their parents are still their parents, and children feel the need to love and honor them and defend them if it is perceived that the parents are under attack. The parent-child bond was created early in life when parents were the significant and powerful other on which the child depended for life and security. It's a strong bond and one that outlasts and transcends opposition or compelling intrusions. I know several situations where you've got an 11, 12-year-old child and mom is grumbling about dad and the way he runs things, the way he does things. And the child starts sobbing. I know you want me to hate him too, Mom, but I just can't. Don't put children in that position. And this is why before people blend families, they need to have some really good counseling. Most of them won't, especially in the church. Second, anticipate a wonderful future. In concert with a child, intentional conversations should be held regarding the wonderful possibilities that lie ahead. And these should be worded as we could, or perhaps we can, instead of we will or we are going to. Allow the child to see that the new family will be doing fun and exciting things together, and that will be a part of it all. Share with the child that plans are already in place, and implement some of those plans before the marriage actually happens. If there's to be a move, take the child to see the new home and surroundings so that most of the guesswork is taken out, and conclusions are made on sound facts rather than uncertainty and fearfulness. Disruption, disintegration of a family creates confusion and fear. So anything that can be done to alleviate and allay those things needs to be pursued. It needs to be intentional. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of energy. Well, if you're in such a big hurry that you don't have the time or energy to do this, maybe you're ahead of yourself. Third, give more than is necessary. Blending families is an emotional experience in every sense of the word. It is a time of transition, of leaving a past loaded with familiarity, and is a time of stepping into an unknown future. During such a time, emotions are fragile and nerves are raw. Life seems open-ended with a flavor of uncertainty. People are more vulnerable and more susceptible to being hurt. Such conditions are not a time for restraint when it comes to giving and affirming. Parents need to understand the forces that have come to bear in their children's lives and respond in a spirit of giving more than even seems necessary in terms of the needs of the children. So, children just don't understand why the family can't stay together. Even though they've been told, right? Okay, we can't stay together as a family. We just can't. It's not safe for us to stay with your mother. It's not safe for us to stay with your father. Mommy's going to prison. Mommy's gone to prison. You know, daddy left. He's got a new family. Okay. All those things hurt. And again, children intuitively know that this is a gross violation of God's created order. It's going to have a huge impact on them. They need to be tenderly guided into God is providing in putting this new family together. So it needs to be a lot more giving, a lot more grace. Okay. Fourth is find reasons to thank the child. Recognition and affirmation are basic human needs. In the course of a day, any member of a family may do a number of things worthy of appreciation. Voice that, show that. It's nothing more than recognition that is due. It's speaking the truth about something. As a rule, people respond quite positively to those who've taken the time to notice the good that has been done. Gratitude has the power to transcend many walls of resistance because it so succinctly zeroes on the deepest needs of the heart, especially for children who've been dragged into a family and living situation that is not of their making or of their choosing. Remember, gratitude creates connection. Deep gratitude creates deep connection. I think we even talked about the neurology that's behind that, just the heart stuff. So I tell you what, let's take a break there, come back, and we'll finish this out. So we're going to talk about proactive suggestion number 5. Tell jokes and laugh together. Laughter is a way of breaking down walls. It can bring about a truce even between enemies. Each succeeding generation of children has its own set of children's jokes that seem awfully funny to those children, but inscrutable to others. But jokes don't have to be in vogue for children to laugh. They understand humor and will laugh at almost anything that is remotely funny. They will even laugh at the person trying to be funny when he comes across as not so funny. They think trying to be funny is funny. Children love to laugh, and laughter can be the gateway to the heart of a child. Learn to relax and allow for humor to work its way through your interactions. In other words, don't be a stuffy, stodgy grump. 6, and this is really important, create and maintain privacy. Privacy maintains personal, privileged information shared by only those most trusted and those closest to us. We never share private information with those whom we perceive to be unsafe, in opposition, or those who may use the information against us. And like the rest of us, children like to feel that their personal vulnerabilities are being protected from those who would misuse or abuse that information. Sharing safe and appropriate personal information of your own with a child can go a long way to helping them feel included in your inner circle. They feel honored. They are trusted enough to be a confidant. Proper privacy can be real bridge builders in the arena of blending families. So it's like, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a little intimidated. I'm feeling a little scared about this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this right. I don't know if I'm going to get this right. Talking about your own doubts and uncertainties to a child basically authorizes them to have those same doubts and uncertainties and those same fears, and shows them that it's okay to talk about those things, or say, even something like after I could tell at dinner you don't really like broccoli. That's okay. It's not my favorite either. Those kinds of things. Protecting the personal vulnerabilities of a child, especially if that child comes from a disintegrated family where abandonment or abuse were present. The child feels validated and that they have a worth they may not have felt before. 7, go on an outing together. Time spent with children is never wasted. The simple act of inviting a child on an outing to an ice cream, the park, a ball game, a movie, shopping, the zoo, something uniquely special or simple and fun, where there's quality time devoted to being with the child, may overcome a deadlock and soften the relationship, throws a feeling of common ground. I know a family where he had one son, she had 4 daughters. He did not know from girls. He had no idea what to do with daughters. And when one of the little girls wanted to play tea with him, his masculinity resisted the idea, but his heart was soft toward this little girl. And he said, "I don't know how to play tea. Can you teach me?" Well, she just lit up and she just brightened up. And she became his #1 fan. And so that became their thing. She started calling him Daddy. "Daddy, will you play tea with me?" Doing something special and unique, just the two of them, can be very powerful. Make every attempt to be a bright spot. Children who've lived through the experience of seeing their parents go through the pain of separation and divorce, who've lost a parent through tragedy, are already walking wounded and are living in the well of deep hurt. They may blame themselves for the way things turned out and run the what-if tapes over and over in their minds. Regardless of how things may look on the surface, things may be rather dark on the inside, and any ray of sunshine would be a welcome bright spot in their life. What children do not need is someone to should them out about how they feel or the timing of their feelings. If you have a child that is irritable and short-tempered and there's something going on with them. There's some kind of hurt that they're carrying that they don't know how to deal with or how to process it. Or maybe they're afraid they shouldn't feel this way, or they should be over it by now. Or maybe they're just tired of feeling it. Or maybe they are feeling angry about the fact that their family isn't together anymore. For a step parent to be able to say, "You know what, sweetie? I know that you really want mom and dad to be back together and want them to stay together for the rest of their lives. And I know how sad it is and how hard it is for you to have to be faced with the idea that that's not going to happen. It can't happen. And I know you don't even understand all the why nots. But you know what? Just because you can't have the family that you had before, we're making a new family together. Okay? And you matter here. You matter here. Be that bright spot. Practice giving praise. Now, this is more than just affirmation. Praise works wonders. Praise changes moods, tears down walls, builds bridges, brightens gloomy days, and lightens loads. Praise builds a godly self-image by touching the heart at the deepest level. Praise focuses on the positive and boosts morale. Praise endears and embraces. Praise is a spirit lifter and a people builder. Praise looks for opportunities to encourage and it endorses. Praise can mend a broken heart. So when we take a look at the idea of praise, this is celebrating what someone has done, what someone has accomplished. And it's more than just having done a good job, but using that to point to their character, their good character. Like something like, you showed a lot of determination, a lot of self-discipline getting that done. I know it was really hard. I know it took a really long time, and there were times you probably felt like quitting, but I'm so proud of you for finishing. And you did such a great job of it too. Very powerful. And then be a friend. There's a friend that sticks closer than a brother. So says Proverbs 18:24b. Who better to have as a friend than a child? Children are lovable, affable, pleasant, and are usually quick to reach out to those who show they care. The old adage, a friend in need is a friend indeed, could never be more accurately spoken than when referring to a child who's experienced the disintegration of his former family. Such is the time when a child needs a friend. Becoming a friend is an opportunity to reach across a chasm, embrace a child's heart, and open a door to the future. And that's not being best buds, but think about someone who's a friend. Someone who's a friend understands that you're not always going to have your best attitude. You're not always going to be the nicest. You're not always going to be the tidiest. You're not always going to be the most devoted to doing things right. They love and accept you, and they affirm you anyway. A friend is someone who's your ally, who's in your corner, right? Who will lovingly support you. And even if you need to be corrected, will say, that's not okay, right? And we'll say, you know that's bad, you know that's wrong. They're not going to chastise, but they will gently correct. But it's done because they want God's best for you. Number 11, build in the power of love. Believe in the power of love. Apostle Paul was intuitive and discerning when he put his thoughts to pen in his 13th chapter of 1 Corinthians. Applying his words to the efforts of blending a family addresses the power of love to overcome and conquer the walls of resistance and mend hearts that are broken. Family transition is a time when emotions are tender and feelings are easily bruised. Think about that idea of easily bruised, okay? They've been through so much. It's like somebody's been banging on their arm with a fist over and over and over and over. It's not even that they've been hit hard, just a lot. And that part of their arm is so tender and so susceptible to them experiencing a great deal of pain if it's even touched lightly. That's what's going on with their heart and their soul. Okay. When parents wish to build bridges in merging families, they need to take note. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful. Okay? Jealous of the child still has a good relationship with the other parent, or even has a lot more fun at the other parent's house, and not boastful about how much you do it better, and not arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. It's not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at the wrong, but rejoices in the right. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Love never ends. Love has power. Love works miracles. Love never gives up. I know this is hard. This is hard for all of us. And each of us are handling that difficulty differently. And it doesn't all have to look all the same. And if you need to go in your room and cry, if you need to go in the backyard and throw a ball at the fence, what is it that you need? What is it that you need? Let's see what we can do about that. If you want to talk, if you want to color, if you want to go race go-karts, what will help relieve this pressure for you? But it's about the attitude toward that person, not expecting them to have a flawless attitude and a perfect way of dealing with the brokenness. 12, I like this one. Be the parent you would like to have. The simple act of putting ourselves in someone else's shoes changes the perspective of simply seeing that person as a fixed entity into understanding that person as a person with feelings, with highs and lows, dreams, hurts, delights, joys, someone who needs support, who knows loneliness, experiences moods, has aspirations, and has most, if not all, of the needs we ourselves have. When families are in transition, parents need to look at their children and ask themselves, what is this child feeling right now? Or if I were in his or her place, what would life be like for me right now? The decision to be the kind of parent you would like to have if you were in the child's place may transform one's thinking and enable that parent to be more sensitive, caring, and present in the life of the child. This exercise should be done several times a day, at least initially, until one senses a transformation of their own perspective. See? What are the things that cause me to act out like this? You know? 13, this is real important, avoid triangulation. Triangulation is a complicated configuration of personalities in which two people in a triad are in union to exclusion of the third. Okay. Now, there are times when it is appropriate and expected, and times when it is treacherous. In terms of parental guidance and discipline, it would be expected that the two parents would maintain unanimity in their disciplining overtures toward the child. Sending the same signal from both parents sends a message to the child is the third party, and that it is incumbent on him or her to correct his or her behavior. But in terms of ongoing familial interaction, no one wants to be left out or feel like an outsider. Nowhere is this more able to be seen than in the blending of families when a child from a former marriage is cast into the setting of a new family in which they perceive themselves as excluded. One of the ways this happens often is you'll have, certain family members that have a history together, and they have shared experiences that they'll talk about and they'll celebrate and they'll laugh about inside jokes and stuff like that. And the other members from the other family have no clue what's going on. And they're not invited in, it's not shared with them, and they're not, and it can get to the place where they feel like they're not welcome, let alone they're not a part. So every effort should be made to avoid triangulation, and every effort made to include the child at every proper opportunity for involvement in the new family. Even saying, talking about Uncle Herman setting the Christmas tree on fire. Okay, have you guys ever had anything like that happen? Anything scary but funny happen at Christmas? Get them into storytelling too. Don't just, don't triangulate. Give them an opportunity to feel connected. And Uncle Herman really did set fire to the Christmas tree. Be flexible. Number 14, the process of blending families is infused with all kinds of emotional reactions that come from merging and assimilating personalities into new family relationships. Baggage from the past often accompanies past unresolved emotional issues into the present. These emotional issues may be tender or volatile, and they may rapidly switch back and forth, unpredictably. Emotional transference. This is an unconscious redirection of feelings from one person to another. Often conceals the two true sources of pain, estrangement, or underlying sentimentality. Such times are not times for rigid approaches, as inflexibility only immobilizes emotional expression and often sets feelings in concrete. So the non-offending parent gets attacked with animosity and vitriol by the wounded child because they're the safe parent for this child to dump their hard, scary, hurt feelings onto. Because getting upset at the offending parent, the parent that caused all this, does no good. And a lot of, especially if you got abandonment and abuse, where the families had to escape and set themselves on a new path, the non-offending parent can end up bearing the brunt of the hurt, anger, and confusion because the child has no way to express those things to the parent who's responsible. On the other hand, flexibility gives needed space for sharing what is in one's heart and soul, as there is an atmosphere of openness and affirmation. Okay, you sound really hurt and angry right now. Would you like to talk about it? Simply having space in which to maneuver emotionally can in itself be oil for troubled waters and balm for healing. In the process of building and growing new families from previous or existing ones, the need for flexibility cannot be overstated, and the adults who are responsible for shaping the future need to be especially sensitive to parameters as they exist. So we need to say, look, it's not okay for us in our anger to be hurtful to other people or to destroy property. That's not okay. We're not going to do that, okay? There are other ways for us to process our anger and other ways for us to express that. So let's pursue those, all right? 15, play age-appropriate games. Most every child enjoys playing games, even ones they make up on the moment, especially if they're able to capture the attention of a child either as a partner or as an opponent. Nothing thrills a child like thinking he or she has won a game over an adult opponent. One can usually observe the glee of winning in a child's eyes. As cognitive skills develop, the desire for more sophisticated and mentally challenging games also increases. Games provide unique opportunities for adults to interplay with children, opportunities that parents who are meshing two families can ill afford to miss. Because you're establishing new, healthy experiences, you're building a history together. And if those are filled with laughter and fun and joy, the better. 16, look for common interests. There are activities and interests which adults and children may have in common, things that they can do together to build harmony and solidarity. Sporting activities, while not limited to males, can usually provide common ground among men and boys. Such concerns as rooting for a favorite team, collecting team memorabilia, watching or attending games, keeping up with the stats, knowing who the players are, all have the potential for building bridges and cementing relationships. Shopping, beauty shops, fashion, and cosmetics are common girl things, enjoyed by adults and youth alike. Developing commonality in such interests creates feelings of inclusion and acceptance and is a great springboard to capturing hearts and winning support. Now, sure, those things are gender specific, but I've got a daughter who loves football more than any guy I know, right? She keeps more up with the stats than I haven't cared about the stats in football for years. They got teams I never heard of playing football, right? It used to be the NFL, now it's the NFLL. I mean, there's lots of them, right? There's lots of teams that change their names, they move cities, I can't keep track, but she's on it, right? So while I'm not a great football fan, I will pay attention. I'll keep track, especially of her favorite team and the players on that team, so that I can have a conversation with her about those things. 17, be a cheerleader. Everyone needs someone in their corner, rooting for them, believing in them, and cheering them on. Just as athletes on the playing field are buoyed by the cheers of others, children are also uplifted by the support of parents who lead the cheers. The children are easily drawn toward those persons who serve as their cheerleaders. Just celebrating with the child can be powerful. And one thing that is super affirming for a child is, like, stepdad comes in and the child is very fond of their mother, and for the new dad to affirm mom, man, your mom is so smart, isn't she? The child feels affirmed because of their connection to that parent. Your mom is an amazing cook. She takes such good care of us. It's just unreal to me how good she does, how loving she is. And so that affirms the child because of their connection to that parent. So it's not just being a cheerleader for the child, it's being a cheerleader for their parent, their other parent. 18, overcoming resistance. Blending families is difficult even under the most favorable of circumstances. Loyalties are to familiarity, to the way it was, and often to the parent who is now absent. And children have a number of weapons at their disposal to put up a wall of resistance, and they can be quite creative and immovable in the process. In some cases, step-parents try every conceivable tactic to win over a child whose will is as rigid as steel. The temptation is to give up and throw in the towel, believing the child's heart will never be won. However, perseverance always pays off and will win in the end. Step parents who want harmony and unity must not give up. They must go the distance, loving the most unlovable in order to overcome the resistance. Because what the child is concerned about is, okay, so the family I was born into disintegrated. How do I know this one won't? Okay. Something I did or said caused my parents to end up divorced, caused my dad to leave, caused my mom to leave. Okay. So I'm afraid that could happen here, so let's just get it over with. Right? No, I'm loving you no matter what. I'm gonna love you no matter what. I'm gonna love you no matter. I may not like your attitude. I may not like what you're saying. I may not like the things that you do, but I will love you no matter what. This one is 19 is another. Include children in your plans. In planning an outing, a day's activities, or a getaway, adults often make plans to the exclusion of or input from their children. I mean, they already did that with blending the two families, right? It's easy to assume the things that things parents want to do will also be the things their children would want to do. This approach works for some families as children go along with whatever's been planned by the parents, even when their own wishes have been overlooked. This approach is unproductive and hurtful for stepchildren as they already feel like the fifth wheel in terms of planning and inclusion. Gaining input from children creates ownership in whatever activity and should be encouraged to ensure success in bridge building and blended families. So we're thinking about going away for a weekend. We can't go very far. We got to be frugal with our money. So what are some of the things that we might look at doing? We want to spend time at the beach? Do we want to go to the mountains? Do we want to go to the desert? Do we want to spend a day, a day going to garage sales? What do we want to do? What do we want to do? Give the children an opportunity to plan. And the last one, of course, never give up. In seeking to win the hearts of a stepson or stepdaughter and in seeking to overcome resistance, the inclination is to give in and give up. Going on day after day, seeing very little, if any, light, the temptation is to surrender and send up the white flag, letting the most resistant win. Truth of the matter is, however, that nobody wins when the parents surrender and give up. Though there is resistance, it is usually out of hurt and a sense of self-protection that children resist. Children often want things to be the way they were, but they know they cannot be that way ever again. They often also are fearful that what has happened to cause disintegration of one family can happen again, believing you can overcome negativity and creating a positive setting will eventually bring the much sought after victory and put the new family in the winner's circle. Okay. And I've seen just very subtle things where step-parent and stepchild standing in the kitchen having a very comfortable conversation when there's just been this opposition. I'm making a sandwich. Would you like one? Yeah, but I don't want that kind of sandwich. Well, let's make you whatever kind of sandwich you want. What do we got? Let's see. And all of a sudden, there's the common goal, right? Something's just simple like that. But because of the heart behind it, the care being extended toward that child, it was miraculous. So, concluding thoughts. God's design for the family is to be a place where parents nurture their children in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. This is true for traditional nuclear families as it is for non-traditional blended families. Getting and keeping our focus on God's original design and purpose are the key to helping those who come to us for help when they face difficulties within their blended family. I'm talking to us as biblical counselors. As a biblical counselor, you may often be faced with differing specifics, but the underlying issues will be the same. People live what they believe to be most true at any given moment. If they believe what God believes, life will be easier to navigate. If they believe that which is contrary to what God believes, life will be ever more complicated and difficult. Self-righteousness, idolatry, and foolishness underlie every and all sin responses of every fallen human being in relationship with fallen human beings. And being transformed by the renewing of one's mind, exchanging lies for truth, and being more and more surrendered to the indwelling of Jesus Christ are the solutions to every problem faced. The key is to guide people to the place where they know, understand, and live this out. Okay. So that's what I have on this for this evening. What are your thoughts?